Hi everybody. So welcome to the video where we go over how to give critical feedback to somebody else's essay. And so for this example, we're going to go over a sample essay. That's what this activity is based on. So as a starting point, I went ahead and pasted the prompt for the first essay so that we could sort of refresh our memory on that. And so as a reminder, you're going to be writing 500 to 750 words, so that's about 2 to 3 pages. And the first prompt is centered on this sort of overarching question. When it comes to success, what is the relationship between talent, grit, and growth mindset? And so when you are considering this question, you want to figure out, of these 3 factors, talent, grit, and growth mindset, which one is most important. And so it can also be one of those factors, it can be 2 of those factors, or it can be a balance of all 3. So you have to basically decide, what do you want to focus on for your argument of saying, of these 3, which combination do you feel are the most important for success? Is it just talent? Is it just grit? Is it just growth mindset? Or is it some combination of these 3? Or is it all 3? That's what you're going to be writing about. And then, as you will find for all the essays in this class, you can also create your own prompt as long as it's related to what we're talking about. You just have to tell me about it. And so what we also want to focus on as we go through this activity is that every essay prompt will have sort of a criteria for success, and that's almost like a checklist for yourself as you are working on your draft. And then that will also give you a sort of a guideline to help other people when you're giving feedback. So when we start with essay 1, it's sort of a shorter list, and then we'll be adding on to that. So as we get into the other essays. So for this first one, we have about 4 things that we're going to be looking at. Actually about 2 things and then kind of a couple of notes. So the first one is there a clear arguable thesis at the end of the introduction? And then the other thing we're going to be looking at are the pie paragraph. So within the pie paragraph, there's the point, information, explanation. So I'll go over that again as we get into the activity. And then the other 2 notes are, you want to try your best, obviously, to write clear sentences, but I'll be just noting the grammar this time, and I won't be grading it down. But we'll be using that when you get your feedback as a starting point for the next unit as we're actually delving into the grammar. So you don't worry as much about having perfect grammar this time, but I will be making notes about that. And then you do want to use at least 2 direct quotations from the readings, but as long as you just put quotation marks around it, that's fine. You don't have to have a correct MLA. Again, we'll be working on that for the next unit. Okay, so this is again like the checklist for yourself, and it will help you give feedback to other people. So let's get into the activity that will help us give feedback. So step 1, watch my video. So you are doing that now. And I'm going to sort of begin the activity by showing you how to annotate and give feedback, but I'm not going to do the whole essay. I'm just going to begin the process. And then either in class or over the schedule, I will show you what the accompanying activity is so that you are going to get some practice after you watch this model. And then we'll probably be doing a debrief of some sort so we can sort of pull all of our ideas together and then talk about how you're going to use this in your own writing process. So let's get started. So here's sort of some tips for yourself and what I'm going to be modeling for you. So how do you give clear feedback? The first thing you want to do is sort of identify, what am I going to be looking for? What's the criteria for success? And you want to just sort of mark those. So kind of like talking to the text, annotating, you want to sort of like make sure you mark them in. You want to consider this is your text now, like an article, this sample essay is your text. So I suggest you highlight in different colors That might be a little bit harder to do if we do this in Cami, but it's pretty easy to do in Google Docs, so that's what I'm going to be showing you. You can also just make sure you have underlined it, marked it in some way. You just want to make sure that it is clear to you, even if you just draw a line and write thesis. Just have some sort of system so you know what you are sort of marking off. So you want to identify where's the thesis in the introduction, because that's one of the things you're going to be graded on. And then as you move to the body paragraphs, you want to mark within each body paragraph, where is the point, which area in the body paragraph is the information. So the information is going to be most likely a quote from one of our readings. It can also be an example or a short personal story that is used to prove their point. So any of this can be the information. And then which group of sentences do you feel is their explanation? So where are they sort of pulling everything together to explain how their information proves their point? So once you I would sort of block off, okay, this is the thesis, this is the point, this is the information, this is the explanation. Mark it off first without giving any feedback, then go back in and make comments about the clarity and the strength. So once you go back in, here are some questions that you can consider. So does the thesis clearly answer the essay prompt? Is the wording clear? And would you give any feedback about that? And you can write some notes, giving them some suggestions or just saying, yes, it's clear, it answers the prompt. And then this is about the body paragraph. So is the point, the first sentence, is that a point, first of all? Is it arguable and connected to the thesis? Does it set up what the rest of the paragraph will be about? And then shortly after that, there should be a quote or an example, but most likely a quote. So does that quote support and prove the point? Does the quote make sense? And does it make sense in the context of this paragraph? Or is it just sort of like a general quote that you think they just sort of like plopped in there and it's not really connected to the point? And then moving on to the last part, is there an explanation? So are there a few sentences where this person walks the reader through what the quote means and then how the quote or the example proves the point? Like, do they walk through the logic of their argument for that body paragraph? So again, you should be going back through. That's the second step in writing comments about that. So I'm going to do that just for one paragraph so I can model it for you. And then whatever the instructions are for the accompanying activity, you'll get a chance to practice it on your own. So here is the sample. It is a real essay from last year. So I'll allow you to read the intro paragraph on your own. And I'm not going to give feedback on the thesis because I do want you to be able to give feedback on your own, but I will just read it out loud so we can have that sort of context as we look through the first body paragraph together. So I'm guessing that the thesis is actually 2 sentences, but when you select it on your own, I want you to think about, do you agree? Is this thesis 2 sentences? Let me read it first and then I'll put that question. Anyone that has grit and a growth mindset can achieve success, but it will take a lot of practice and hard work. Having grit and a growth mindset are significant factors to consider when determining success, as both are closely related to hard work and work very well together. So I want you to consider that. I'll put that kind of comment here. Do you agree that this is a 2-sentence thesis? Why or why not? And then give your other feedback about the strength and clarity of the thesis. Okay, Let me make it a little bit smaller so we can also see my comments. So focusing on the second sentence, it says, having grit and growth mindset are significant factors to consider when determining success. So we want to look at this as our roadmap for the rest of the essay, that we would imagine they're going to be focusing on grit and growth mindset. And we want to see if the first paragraph is about one of those. So we're just going to go through the first paragraph together, and then you're going to be doing your activity about the rest of the body paragraphs and the thesis. So I highlighted the first sentence because I'm hoping that's the point. So it says, when choosing between fixed and growth mindsets, a growth mindset is what everyone should strive to have. So I'm going to be putting just some general feedback. You're probably going to go in more depth, but this is the point. Good general argument. Perhaps just mention success. So I think it's a good start to a point. It's a little bit vague where it says a growth mindset is what everyone should strive to have. So where my suggestion is perhaps just mention success, because again, the overarching idea for this essay is success. So remember, the prompt is saying, which factors do you think connect to success? So you want that to be threaded throughout your whole essay. And that would be my suggestion for the point. When you say should strive to have, you would want to go into at least a little more detail for what. In order to reach success, something, and striving for success, something, just add that little tidbit there. So I already sort of looked through the paragraph. In order to save some time, I'm going to highlight this and then go over what I'm highlighting. So I'm going to make this a different color. Let's see if this shows up. Well, kind of a bright green, but you get the idea. So I'm making this the information, and then I'll go over what it is. And I can go back and edit that in a second. So what we see here is anytime you have like a definition, and that's what the writer goes into, is people with a growth mindset believe that their ability can be developed through long periods of practice, dedication, and hard work. People with a growth mindset see obstacles and failures as learning lessons on what to improve rather than an indicator they are unintelligent. And it can be almost seen as explanation, but really what they're doing is providing a definition of what a growth mindset is. So imagining that maybe a person doesn't really understand growth mindset, they're providing a definition. So if you are going over what the terms are and what the definitions are, that's information. They're sort of giving you the context of like, okay, here's the information that you need to know in order to believe my argument. So this is all information. They're providing the definition, the information in order for you to be persuaded. And then they lead right into a quote. So that's more information. So I believe this is from Brainology. It says, the children praised for their intelligence lost their confidence as soon as the problem got more difficult. Now as a group, they thought they weren't smart. They also lost their enjoyment, and as a result, their performance plummeted. On the other hand, those praised for effort maintained their confidence, their motivation, and their performance. Finally, the children who were praised for their intelligence lied about their scores more often than the children who were praised for their effort. So I'll just make a note here that the writer provided definitions and a quote. My suggestion would be to work on the flow a little bit. Everything is, or maybe, Okay, so even though we're not really working on transitions yet, you can still see how it's like definitions, quote, and there's no sort of bridge between any of the ideas. So that's a pretty easy fix. You at least want to introduce like where the quote is coming from, or at least say we can also see examples of this in the article Brainology. Something like that. You need some sort of short bridge to bridge the definition to the quote. Otherwise, you're just like throwing all this information in here and it's a little bit choppy. That would be my suggestion. And really all of this whole section here is explanation. So let me make this another, is that a light purple? Kind of dark purple. Okay. So I'm just making a note of like what this is, and then after I kind of summarize it, I can go back and make some suggestions. So the writer does spend a lot of time kind of digging into the explanation, which is what I'm looking for. Let's just see if I can give him any suggestions. So the study from Brainology highlights a key concept in that having a growth mindset allows people to be more open-minded to learning opportunities. And as a result, so that's a good transition, people are willingly developing more skills to reach the intelligence or talent ability that they aspire to. The study points out that mistakes and challenges are also part of the process of learning. Overcoming challenges and learning from your mistakes are good demonstrations of growth mindset, as it shows that you're improving. This study also shows how damaging it can be when children are praised for their intelligence, as it ruins their self-esteem and wanting to challenge themselves and learn new things. They become unmotivated as quickly as they are only focused on their fixed mindset of intelligence levels and don't want to learn. They think making mistakes would tarnish their abilities rather as opportunities to expand them. Ultimately, having a growth mindset allows you to control your abilities because you're willing to learn and improve. So I think the writer does a really good job of comparing and contrasting fixed mindset. I would say maybe here you need a little bit of a bridge between the compare contrast and then showing how all these ideas connect back to your overall ideas about success. So good compare and contrast. Just add a bridge back to your overall ideas about success. So overall, I think this is a really good sort of skeleton of the pie structure. What my suggestions are really about the flow. So there's a couple of areas where you need a bridge, a transition to sort of help the reader get to the next idea. But really the point of this activity is for you to get practice first to sort of to identify the elements of the body paragraphs. And we'll also getting into the thesis too, but mainly the body paragraphs to see like, okay, there's the point, there's some information, and there's explanation. So first identifying it, and then going back in and being thoughtful about, is it clear? Is it well developed? How's the flow? What kind of feedback can I give? And within that process, you can start to learn the skills that you would need to give yourself another look when you work on your own rough draft. So I think I'm going to pause there, and then through the schedule or our in-class activity, you will see what that activity is set up for you to get some practice for yourself. And I look forward to seeing all the feedback that you provide for the sample essay and for your peers. I look forward to seeing your rough draft. So good job, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.